Bruce, yeah, just some harrowing interviews this morning from people in emergency situations there up on their roofs in that Lismore area. Take us through what's happening and what's known about how many people need to be rescued.
To be honest, Joe, I could not even begin to put a figure on that because nobody can get an estimate due to how severe the situation is. But it is fair to say that authorities are absolutely scrambling to respond to a situation that has deteriorated much more quickly than anyone expected, even as early as yesterday afternoon. Just to give you some sort of perspective, a lot of people might remember the flood that was recorded here in Lismore 5 years ago. That was at a level of around 10.8 metres. So if we go back to 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the Wilsons River was expected to peak just a little bit below that, and people were beginning to become genuinely concerned. Over the next couple of hours, I was doing a bit of emergency broadcasting on radio, and that got upgraded to 11 metres. Well, now this morning, overnight, just extraordinary amounts of rain have fallen. In some parts of this region, we've had more than half a metre of rain in the last 24 hours. That's fallen on an absolutely sodden catchment, and the results have been, as the SES itself is saying, catastrophic. Here in Lismore, the Wilsons River is now beyond 13 metres. No one's ever seen a flood of that extent in the city's recorded history, and it's expected to perhaps reach 14 later today. Some members of the public have already been out this morning trying to do their best to rescue some of those people who, as you mentioned, have become stranded in their homes. I spoke to one elderly couple just as they got off a boat early this morning, just down the hill from the ABC studio.
Luckily our son has the boat and he tripped on down, and before it got up to here on us, he managed to get us.
And the couple that who came with us that he rescued from next door, the gentleman's very ill, so it was a bit of a job getting them into the boat.
Yeah.
But it's all good, and then our other neighbour needed rescuing, so we're all about to climb on our roofs.
Yeah, and there are people on their roofs right now calling for help in that area. So, Bruce, explain for us the topography of Lismore, the river that flows through there. I think there's a junction of river and a creek there. And how many homes are kind of generally in that low-lying area, and what that's been expanded to now with the sudden rise of the river there to levels that just were not expected.
Yeah, the thing that makes Lismore very flood-prone is you've got the Wilsons River, and then you've got Leicester Creek, which is a major tributary, and the junction of those two waterways is right near the Lismore CBD. That's why they spent tens of millions of dollars on a flood levy, but unfortunately we've now seen that breached twice in the space of 5 years. Now that was supposed to provide, I think it was 1 in 10 year flood protection for the CBD and also for parts of South Lismore, but all those areas, basically Lismore is pretty pan-shaped. Some people actually refer to it as the Wok, because that is the topography that makes it so flood-prone. So now all of those flood-prone areas are underwater, so you are talking thousands of homes. And a lot of those homes have actually been raised and are on stilts, but such is the extent of the flooding that water is still getting into those raised homes.
And presumably there are thousands of people in evacuation centres, are there, in that local area?
Yes, there are evacuation centres springing up everywhere, including obviously in Lismore. But we've got a pretty extraordinary situation, Joe. For the first time I can ever recall, the SES has issued a blanket flood evacuation warning for the entire region. So that's all those catchments between Tweed and Clarence. So that takes in obviously the Tweed River, the Brunswick River, the Richmond River, the Wilsons River and the Clarence River. So all of those flood-prone areas in our entire region are now at least under a flood evacuation warning, and some of them are under flood evacuation orders. Of course, some people can't obey those orders because it's too late. The water's up and they can't safely leave. So, as you've heard, they have to wait and hope that help arrives in time.
And Bruce, I noticed an emergency alert that went out this morning from New South Wales SES about the, I think, Rocky Road Dam, I think it's called, which is just upstream.
Rocky Creek
Dam, and that the warning mentioned that water was spilling over the top of that in an uncontrolled manner. Have you been up there, and what's it like up there, and what's it like to think that water is spilling over there like that?
Yeah, so there has been a dam failure alert, and that Rocky Creek Dam, that's the main source of drinking water for most of this region. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether that has any sort of impact. But yes, people downstream from there in low-lying and flood-prone areas have been, everywhere is covered by that flood evacuation warning. So they're not alone there. But yeah, very unusual situation there as well, Joe.
Okay, Bruce McKenzie reporting there from Lismore.